guys all for coming to school today instead of going to see Star Wars. I really appreciate you being here. Yeah, so I guess I'll start off by doing some introductions because I know when I was your age, I really didn't care what anyone had to say to me except they, had a reason to. So if you want to tab over, this is who I am. This is just like a blip of what I, have done professionally. But right out of undergrad, I went to Escapist Magazine, which is actually based out of Durham, North Carolina. It's a video game mag, and I was their community manager and senior editor. Afterwards, I quit to go to law school, which I'm finishing up now, and I work as the legal intern at Epic Games, the only legal intern, which is fun. And I also work for a law firm in New York that manages indie game legal needs. And I work for the Game Developers Association, if you've ever heard of them, which I'll talk about a little later. I'm the Triangle Chapter Chair, and I work for headquarters doing community work. I went to UNC. I'm a townie. I grew up in Chapel Hill. I've never left the area. I got a degree in philosophy, which a lot of people might tell you is silly, but also if you're trying to be in video games, you understand about those aspirational goals. And now I'm in law school. Hopefully I'll graduate at the end of this year. So, of course I have a law background, and I just wanted to start really broad. You guys maybe know video games are protected by the First Amendment as free speech. But this only happened really recently. If you look, it's 2011 that this was ruled. So until this time, a lot of people were debating, like, are games art? And now we know for sure, officially, yes, they are art. They're as protectable as plays or any other kind of, traditional medium. So that case also affirmed the ESRB. I'm sure you guys see when you buy games, there's a little rating in the corner that says like the age rating. The video game industry is self-regulating and really, really good at it. It makes it kind of special. We don't have to have someone like the FDA coming and telling us like how we label things because we do a better job than any of the other industries. As you can see, we're 10% more effective than the others. If you want to, I have a graph actually. So yeah, this is like the other content, DVDs and films, CDs, and some of them are not very DVDs or pretty not good at regulating, and we're great at it. So it just kind of shows you that the games industry is really active and like really conscientious about the content that it's making and the messages that it's putting out there to consumers because we're often under a lot of scrutiny. So that's just a background of like the context of working in games. I'm sure you know video games are really, really profitable. It's one of the fastest growing sectors of the US economy, probably fastest growing sector in most developed countries. And it's projected to earn $100 billion globally this year. That's at the top end. It might not hit there, but it'll definitely be 90 billion. And that's a whole lot of money, just a lot for, and new jobs all the time. And we're also entering a lot of different markets, which is where a lot of that money is coming from, because as you know, games aren't just about entertainment anymore. They're not just about sitting, in your basement playing Mario. It's also like helping save lives, you use surgical applications or like drones probably use, game engines to visualize simulators. There's just a lot of practical ramifications. And so games are becoming relevant to everyone now, not just nerds. So that's pretty exciting. This is just for my work. I just wanted to illustrate, whenever I think about how much money is in video games, these are all McLarens, and they're all owned by the same person who I won't mention at my office. So every day I like walk out of my office and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the nicest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's all paid for by video games. So that's really exciting and aspirational. I mean, obviously not everyone is a millionaire, but definitely it's possible. If you work hard enough, there's a lot of revenue in this industry. So you can be taken seriously by your parents. Yay. So y'all wanted to talk about kind of how to get a job in the games industry, and the beginning of that question is like, what are the jobs or in the games industry? What kind of roles could you have? But above that is what kind of companies do those people work for? Because it's not just developers, as you see. Like that's the core, the most obvious. So Epic is a developer, BioWare, Bethesda. I'm sure you guys have your favorites. I like Telltale and Double Fine, but they're the people that are actually like making the actual product, like the narrative, the design, Gears of War, for example, was designed and made by Epic. In addition to making the actual game, a lot of those devs tap other companies to help them during that process, people that don't necessarily work in-house. So like, for example, you know, when Sony has all of their passwords hacked, they probably need to consult some IT and security people to try to figure out what happened and how to make it not happen again. So those people don't necessarily work directly in games all the time, but they might be tapped to help for a specific issue. We also need publishers. Publishers are the people that take that finished product and get it into a place where consumers can interact with it. They can see it, they can hopefully purchase it long term. So actually like putting the file on, you know, the disk, that kind of thing. Or, you know, online distribution is huge now, so that's another thing. Media and press, a lot of people don't think about them often as a traditional like part of the games industry, but just like in our government, we have 3 branches. The press is considered an unofficial 4th branch. I think that's the same way in the games industry. We really need, you know, as a developer, and now you can see I've worked on both ends of this, your job in part is to be a fangirl, to love the product you're making, but your job as a journalist is going to be to check those people and critique them and let them know when they're maybe wrong or not thinking about something. So think about maybe working in press. It's really fun. You get to be honest, talk a bunch of junk. Membership associations. I work for the Game Developer Association. It's technically, you know, it's not my full-time job, but it's other people's full-time job. And those are kind of like, I say this unofficially, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. I think about it like a kind of like a frat for the games industry, not in a negative way, like in a social community building way. Like if you want to do charity, if you want to find out who lives near you, or like collaborate on some kind of project on the side, or just want to talk to someone because you work in a really stressful job and need to find someone that has a similar job that can just listen to you. Game Developer Association and similar membership organizations are a really good place for that. IGDA is the largest nonprofit membership organization in the games industry, so that's something to think about. But there's also, I just know because I'm a lawyer, the Video Game Bar Association is a thing, and that's just for game law. So think about like if you guys have something user interface or animation or something like that, there's probably a membership association or a special interest group related to that. And then the Game Dev Drink Up, that's more social, but like when you join the games industry, there become sort of like clubs like that where you don't have to buy your way in, but it's just like, hey, we're meeting up once a month down at the local bar if you want to come hang out. So that's, you know, the most casual way, but just to sort of meet people. And then retail and distribution. A lot of people don't think about this either, but GameStop, Best Buy, Steam, stuff like that. Like when I go into GameStop, I consider those people part of the industry because they're selling the same product that I am, maybe the same exact product. So that's just sort of an overview. The kinds of jobs within those companies. And these are particularly focused on maybe a developer. And this is, you know, based on my anecdotal knowledge, but programmers are the ones you think about the first. And they code on a bunch of different things. Like at our company, we make an engine as well. So we have specifically engine coders as well as game coders, as well as people that need to build websites for us, like while we're promoting particular games. There's a lot of artists. Like this is none of these are exhaustive like lists of any of these roles. There are so many kinds of artists in our company. Like I couldn't even begin. And that's one of the main things we need. So consider that definitely. Animation, 3D modeling, narrative. There's just anything that you need to make an interactive story. Support. So once you make a product, like it's not just perfect. It needs to be maintained. Like the community is not just going to have a perfect interaction with it. So we do a lot of like testing to make sure there's no bugs. Reaching out to the community, just asking them. Like so. A lot of PR work there. You've got your business people. Like I work in that wing at Epic. I work in legal, so I do contracts, or at least I draft them under the tutelage of my lawyer boss. Those people tend to make a lot of money, but there's higher education required from that. So when you're looking at these jobs, just kind of consider that each one has specific requirements. Operations, those are the people that work actually just in the building. Like they're not making the game necessarily, but they're helping run the actual company. like who's putting the food on the table, who's hiring people, who's making sure that employees are happy. That's a job that you could have there. And then almost all of these positions can be contracted out. Like, don't feel like you should only be looking for a full-time job, because some people don't want that. They want the flexibility to be able to move around and work for multiple companies. So most of these positions you could do as a contractor, which just means, you know, you're getting paid for specific work rather than having a long-term obligation. That might be kind of above your head right now, but it's just something to think about. Kinds of education. So I kind of put everything on here because I've known people in the industry with all levels of education. One of my mentors, Greg Boyd, he's probably one of the preeminent people practicing law in the games industry. He has an MD and a JD from UNC that he got at the same time because he was just like, I want to figure it out. It doesn't end up being necessary, a lot of it. It's just we have a lot of smart people, so anticipate you're going to see a lot of degrees. But they're not all necessary, and every job is going to be different. Every single particular job, not just every role, because sometimes the specific things you need are going to be unique. So you kind of have to just literally think about the job you want and figure out what the needs of that particular one are. Ask other people that do that job and see maybe what they have. These are just majors that I know people have. I know they go to full-time universities and get things like math, computer science, fine arts, communication, graphic design, traditional degrees. But there's also a lot of like trade and associate schools that I would say much more people that I know in the games industry that went to college went to these trade schools. Like Full Sail is a huge one. So many people I know went to that school. School of Communication Arts is local. I know some people at Red Storm that graduated from there doing user interface. And I know Wake Tech has a pretty robust game design program as well. I see a lot of their students at IGDA meetings. And I think we've placed one of them possibly in an internship, so that's exciting. But yeah, there's a lot of different routes you can go with education. I think a main thing is what do you want to do? And then how do you build skills to do that thing? Funding, a big thing people ask is like, where can I get money? Because, you know, it's not cheap to either make a game or go to school to study one. University scholarships, there's a lot of scholarships just through your school. I think for me, a more interesting route is the private grants that are available. And this is going to involve a little research on your part just because it's changing all the time what funding is out there. Personally, I know that through IGDA, we do a scholars program where if you want to go to conferences and you can't afford it, we will help get you a ticket and help with, I think, travel expenses as well, so that you can possibly go to E3 or go to GDC or PAX or something like that. You just apply basically and say, hey, I'm a young game dev and this is who I am and this is what I want. And that's been a really successful program. One of my buddies is CEO of Antagonist Games, which are making Through the Woods, and he started off as an IGDA scholar just a few years ago. So it definitely is a pretty interesting avenue. Take this project, that's more personal funding. Like if you're a game dev and you want to go seek counseling because of anxiety or depression or something like that, they're setting up a grant right now to just pay for that, just for nothing, just for fun, because it's dangerous to go alone. And then Unreal Dev Grants. We just launched this very recently. If you want to tab over, I know it's my own company, but I think this might be the biggest grant of this kind available out there. We put aside $5 million to help people build stuff in Unreal Engine 4. And as far as I understand it, we're not like buying this property from you. We're just want people to build stuff in Unreal Engine because we think it's a really great product. So definitely go look up the Unreal Engine Dev Grant program if you are interested in just traditional developer stuff. I think the nature of the projects is pretty various too. So I mean, definitely look into it. Even if you think what you're doing is maybe off the beaten path, if you could think of a way to do something with Unreal Engine 4, I think you should, because $5,000 is a lot of money for a high schooler or for anyone, even for me. Public funding, I think people didn't used to think about this all the time, but maybe you should think about this a lot more because this is kind of the future, as people are saying these days. Crowdfunding, like Kickstarter, Patreon, GoFundMe, I'm sure you've heard of these things. A lot of games are getting funded by this. My friend Randy Greenback just recently got Friday the 13th, the game, successfully kickstarted just like a few months ago, and ended up getting permission from the parent company and everything like that, just through starting it on his own and then telling people that he needed help. So that's definitely a way you can go. Streaming, I'm sure you guys are hip to this, but that's a great avenue to get either revenue or attention as someone who's interested in gaming, is just playing a game and turning a camera on. You don't even have to be really that interesting. If you're relatable, people will want to watch it. And also just if you're playing the game for them, because people are kind of lazy. If you want to. So I'm sure you guys all know about PewDiePie, but when I found out how much money he made, I was shocked. I mean, just because the way that page views and clicks translates to revenue, like, he has got so many page views that it's ending up in $7.5 million. But at the same time, like, he's just some guy. He's not even, like, intentionally pandering all the time. He's just kind of being silly on camera, which you guys could easily do. Lots of people do it. So just consider that as a way to, like, maybe make some money with your passion and have a nest egg so that you can work on dev. Or just get your face out there, because I'm sure he gets offered to work at games all of the time, games companies. So, advice for job hunting. This is stuff that I've kind of been figuring out myself over the last few years, because even though I was a professional, I went back to school, and so even though you have sort of a leg to stand on, you still have to start from the beginning in some senses, going like, where can I get the new job that I want? And so I would say the number one thing is company websites. Like, they'll just tell you themselves. Epic has a whole platform on their website of just like positions we're hiring for, and I swear every time I look at it, there's like 30, 40 postings on there. And they may not be, all things that you can do, but some of them will be eventually if you just keep checking back. And I know that all of the major developers do things like this. So just, if there's a game that you like, find out who makes that game, Google their company, and just go on their website and look for what their postings are. And just keep checking, because at our company, our needs change pretty much on a daily basis. We'll have a discussion that will lead to a new project that we didn't realize, and just go, oh, well, we need to hire a bunch of new people now. So you want to be that person that's available when that need arises. Conferences and conventions, I cannot overstate this enough. I think people are not told enough how much networking is going on there. So E3, PAX, GDC, I just put the big ones. ECGC is here, and I think it's worth going to, because we have a bunch of big studios here. I'll show you guys later. And this is where a lot of like actual networking gets done. And I say that just because you see people face to face. You'll see the CEO of a company just sitting eating a sandwich on like the street corner, and maybe you can go, if you're not annoying, just be nice. Go and just have a conversation, and you realize like maybe you have something in common. And so many people I know have gotten their big offer there. I got some offers I wish I had taken up over this last year, but you'll keep getting them if you keep putting your face out there and just going and being where other people in the industry are. Your school will do job fairs. I know Epic sometimes comes to job fairs and does career stuff. I'm sure other devs do. If you're in university, you might as well take advantage of that because you're already there. I said membership associations before. I'm going to say it again. If you're in a membership association in the games industry, the presumption is you're already a video game developer, or at least most of them are. So if you're hanging out in these membership associations, everyone there works for a different company in the field you want. So even if they're not going to give you the job, like, they can remember you, remember that you need it, pass it along, and really think outside the box. Just as an anecdote, I'll tell you the way that I got my 2 best jobs. My first job at Escapist, I graduated from undergrad. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a philosophy major. I knew I didn't want to do anything serious yet, maybe long-term law school, but not yet. So I just hung out on Reddit, and I posted a bunch of stuff about Star Wars, and just living in the area, being a gamer, maybe too much personally identifying information, but just about my interests. And I ended up connecting with somebody at the company that put my name in a list of resumes. I came in for the interview, and I ended up getting it, but only because I was really forthcoming about my interests did that come up. The second thing was my job at Epic, because it didn't exist before I had it. But I knew that I was locally established in games and I wanted to do game law. So I talk about it all the time. I talk about it so much, people really want me to shut up about it. It's like my thing at school, which I wish it wouldn't be. But you have to talk about the things that you love or people won't know what you're interested in and they won't be able to help you. So in my writing class, my teacher just mentions like, hey, I think I went to law school with someone that works in games. And I pestered him about it. I got the name, and it was the general counsel of Epic Games. And he is the only general counsel, in-house general counsel at Epic Games. So none of his information was available. And I found his public access, public feeds, you know, and I sent him a message, and I was like, hey, this is who I am. I'd really like to work for you. I know I don't think you have a position like this, but this is who I am, and I'd really like to do it. And he said no. And I kept writing him for about 6 months. Just nothing annoying, just, hey, I read this article. It's relevant to video game law. What do you think? And then at the end of that semester, during exams, he emailed me and said, you know, actually, maybe we do need a hand. So I've been there for the last 2 years, and it's one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. I love the people I work for, and I only got that job because I ran my mouth a bunch about what I was interested in and pursued avenues that were not established. And that will serve you well in the video game industry because it's a new and an innovative field. And people are going to be looking for that something outside the box. Like, they want you to solve a problem they didn't know they had. That's how you're going to get your job. So this is the list that I made through IGDA Triangle of local game development studios. These are in the Triangle, not even like somewhere else. All of these companies do game development in some aspect, and they're all here, and these are all their websites. If you go to igda.org/triangle, there's a link there with this same list, just right there. I would encourage you to look up these companies and look into whether they have either posted internships or whether they, you know, are they involved in the community? Do they do IGDA events? Maybe you can go to a meeting, meet one of these people, or just send them your resume or something like that. But this is where you should start, I would say. These are just my personal creeds. I'm sure I have more of them, but I like to keep ones that motivate me. I studied Platonism in undergrad, not Aristotelian philosophy, but Aristotle has some good ideas. And he basically says, you are what you do. If you want to be a video game developer, be a video game developer. You do not need permission. Unreal Engine and Unity are both free at the entry level. You don't need anyone's help to do this anymore. You can literally just make games, even by yourself. Like, it'll take you 2 years to get it out there, but you can do it. And so that's my advice is, like, just start. I mean, even if it's small. The other thing is, you're only worth as much as you negotiate. I won't tell you who told me that, but I never forgot it. It was absolutely true, and it's changed my life because nobody is just going to hand it to you. You have to ask. Like, you don't have to demand it, but you have to let people know what you want, or you won't receive it. That's it. Thanks. You guys have any specific questions I might be able to answer? My mother was a lawyer at IBM throughout my childhood, and my mom is my hero, so I wanted to follow in her footsteps. But I really didn't want to be bored, and like legal practice is very dry. So the only way, I'm incredibly ADD. Like, I have to watch 2 movies while I study for my finals at the same time. But yeah, no, I wanted to work in games, and as a minority female in any industry in the world, it can be difficult to get respect, especially when you're young. And I wanted to feel that there was a guarantee of that I could hold my head up high and look people in the eyes, even if they're some 70-year-old person that like started the industry in their basement. I wanted to have that sense of pride. So I think for anyone, you just have to think about who it is that you want to be, who it is that you dream of being, and just try. Just try. No, there's not a certain age. And again, a lot of my examples are going to be anecdotal. They're just people I know that it happened to them, but it just goes to show that it can happen that way. I know a few people at Epic that got hired out of high school, but they started working when they were in high school and took up full-time positions afterwards. I'm not sure if they were salaried, but I think they transitioned into testing jobs, which is more of like a practical job, finding bugs and stuff like that. But you can definitely, there's work that you can start doing immediately. Anything else? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for having me.
One more round.